I think I'm going to start with the Porterhouse, move on to the New York strip, and then for dessert, the filet mignon. Thank you so much. Steakhouses. We all love them. But did you know that you can make steak at home? It's true. I'm here to show you the best way to prepare every cut of steak. So shake up a rock-hard, filthy martini, fire up the grill, because we're about to make some steak, if that wasn't obvious enough by now. Dirty. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. They've supported this channel for over 7 years. In fact, they were my first ever sponsor. Squarespace is the perfect platform to create your own site and accomplish your goals online. Whether you're building a digital empire or just want people to give you hilarious episode ideas, Squarespace has you covered. I'm having a lot of fun making food ranking videos, and my favorite part is seeing what you guys suggest. So I built a site where you can submit your episode ideas. Go to rankedwithbabish.com and submit yours, and coming soon, you can see all my ranked lists. Squarespace's brand new designer templates make it so easy to set up exactly what you need. To create one of your own, head to squarespace.com for a free trial and use code Babish for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. The Porterhouse steak may be the most instantly recognizable steak. Basically just a bone connecting a New York strip and a filet mignon. And I think the best way to cook a porterhouse is to not at all.
What?
Porterhouses are dumb. They're overpriced, and they connect two very different steaks, a filet mignon and a New York strip. So it's pretty hard to nail the doneness for both of these correctly. Leave that for the steakhouses. At home, don't do that. And don't pay for the bone. Bone's free. Rather than show you how to make a porterhouse, which we've made plenty of videos on, I'm going to show you the best ways to make a New York strip and a filet separately. The New York strip. Why is it called a New York strip? I'm asking. I have no idea. And I'm not going to look it up. I left my phone upstairs. Or I mean, back in the Uber to come here to Steakhouse. What I do know is that they have a lovely sort of grassy flavor, a firm texture, and they are the quintessential steakhouse experience. This is my favorite one to just pan, sear, and butter baste. So I'm going to start by generously oiling a cast iron pan. Then I want to heat it up to the point where it is absolutely smoking. We want to sear this guy hot and fast, especially since it's only about 1 inch thick. Once it's got a great crust on it, we're going to lower the heat, add a big old hunk of butter, a few cloves of garlic, and we're going to mop down the steak with the sizzling butter. Then we're going to move the steak onto a plate, pour the hot butter over top, and let it rest for 10 minutes. Our steak is rested. Before we serve, I'm just going to take this clove of garlic and I'm going to treat the top of the steak almost like a cheese grater. The rough texture just kind of shaved off a good amount of that fried garlic. Slice it on the bias. Doesn't come more perfectly cooked than that. Then just to give it a pop of color, put parsley on there, sprinkled salt, a little bit of freshly ground pepper. And sometimes I would drizzle it with olive oil, but we have all this beautiful butter here. All right, a pan-seared, butter-basted New York strip, cooked to a perfect medium rare. It's the combination of the savory, toasty notes of the brown butter, the richness of the steak. New York strip has a slight grassy note, which the butter just rounds out beautifully. Now, if you ask me, that is the very best way to make a New York strip. So next up we have beef tenderloin, or as the French like to call it, filet mignon. It's filet mignon, but I love you and you're doing great. I'm being told it's pronounced filet mignon. Now, the best ways to make this usually involve searing it super hot, finishing it low, and getting it a nice rosy medium rare as edge to edge as possible. And that's a lovely enough way to consume a filet mignon, but they're almost devoid of fat, which is why you have to cook them medium rare. So my favorite way to utilize this steak is with a preparation as classy as filet mignon itself. That is steak tartare, the one raw entrant in our steak extravaganza today. First thing we have to do is trim off all the fat and connective tissue. There we go. An almost entirely lean piece of beef. I'm going to thinly slice it into planks. Now I can cut these pieces into little strips and chop those strips into little tiny cubes. Just to make sure there aren't any bits that we missed, I'm just going to give it a couple once-overs. For the tartare, we need to build a dressing. Often, tartare is served with parsley and capers and some finely chopped onion on the side, almost like you would with caviar, and then you make your own little bites. But I like to make a dressing with all those things, mix it into the beef, and then garnish. So I'm going to finely chop this parsley. About a tablespoon of parsley, a tablespoon of drained and dried capers. Not super finely chopped, but we don't want whole capers in there. I've got about a teaspoon of finely minced shallot. I've got a quarter of a clove of garlic. You don't want to overdo this because it is raw garlic. A little splash of Worcestershire sauce. About half a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. Now earlier I fried some capers, and what I was left with is this lovely caper oil. So I'm going to add just a little bit of that. We don't want to get things too shiny. And I'm also going to hit it with just a tiny splash of apple cider vinegar and a quarter teaspoon of anchovy paste. I like to take the amount of beef that I have here and look at it and see like how much salt would I want on that, and just add that to the dressing. Some freshly ground black pepper. And just because we're a little shy on tools, I'm just going to do this in the deli container to try and mold it into a sort of puck for presentation. I'm going to press it evenly down into this deli container. Now we're going to brush our teeth, say our prayers, and hope that this thing comes out. Oh, no. Well, we can't do that. Start fresh. Move to a new city. Leave your husband. Really press it down in there to try and get a clean, sharp little puck. You want your beef clean and sharp. Beautiful. If you really want to class things up to 11, gently top with a raw egg yolk. And then we're going to garnish with these crispy fried capers. Nice little pop of parsley. Surround with some definitely homemade bruschetta. And there you have it. Just about the classiest way to consume steak that's ever been conceived by a Frenchman, I assume. Let's give it a shot. Let's bust that egg yolk open. Let's class things up a bit. The best steak experiences are those that do not try to cover up or overwhelm the beef, but rather those that highlight and accent the beef. And that's exactly what this is. This tastes distinctly steak-like, but it has this lovely, funky note coming in from the anchovy and the capers. It has this almost excess richness from the egg yolk, and then it's got this lovely, well-rounded flavor from the shallot and the garlic and the caper oil. It's a really lovely way to experience steak. If you haven't tried raw beef before, this is the way to do it. Just be careful out there. There's a lot of weirdos selling beef out of their car. Next up, the humble sirloin. This is a very inexpensive, pretty tasty piece of beef. You could absolutely salt this, hit it on the grill, cook it to medium rare, slice it thin, and have a grand old time. But I think the best way to make sirloin is a different way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slice this guy into bite-sized pieces for beef stroganoff, but I'm also going to utilize the technique of velveting. This is basically marinating the beef in baking soda. This both tenderizes it and lowers the temperature at which the Maillard reaction occurs, so it browns more quickly and readily. Now this guy is headed into the fridge for about 45 minutes. You don't want to go any longer than that because otherwise you're going to turn it to mush and it's going to taste weird. So we've thoroughly rinsed off the beef. And now I'm thoroughly patting it dry because I want to sear it hot and fast, and we want as little moisture as possible in order to do that. Now you might notice I'm using a wok, and that's not just because I velveted the beef. Well, it is. I just thought it'd be cool. And it seems like it'd be a great pan to build the sauce in, so I don't have to answer any of your questions. Got a nice little bit of smoke there. That means that these guys are ready to sear. Yeah, we got color. We got some nice color. I'm just gonna brown it on one side and then finish cooking it in the sauce. We've got here some shallot. I'm gonna grate in some fresh garlic, letting that get a little bit of heat, and then we're deglazing with a cup of beef stock. We're scraping all that good stuff off the bottom of the pot. Now in a separate pan, I'm going to saute some lovely shiitake mushrooms. Water's boiling so we can add our pasta. Our mushrooms are pretty much done cooking. I'm gonna hit them with a little bit of dried thyme because I forgot to buy fresh. Then over here I have our reducing cooking liquid, which I'm going to pour a little bit of over some sour cream. This is going to help temper the sour cream, which will prevent it from splitting when we add it back to the sauce. Our mushrooms and thyme are ready to go, so it's time to mushroom them into thyme. Let's add our beef back to the situation. Glug of soy sauce in there, Worcestershire sauce. Stir this up, let the beef finish cooking. I'm gonna throw a lid down on this guy and let the residual heat help finish cooking the beef. Our beef has finished cooking through. I've killed the heat, and now, and only now, am I going to add the tempered sour cream. Hit it with a cornstarch slurry, which should help thicken things. There we go. Okay, we got our buttered and salted noodles here. All right, we have our stroganoff beef. Now all it needs is a little bit of parsley, a few twists of freshly ground black pepper. And just like that, you've got my favorite way to prepare sirloin steak. The velveting makes it so tender. It can produce some strange off flavors, so you gotta make sure that you rinse it. And it doesn't hurt to have a really strong, savory sauce like this to cover up any strange bitterness that might come from the baking powder. If sirloin's on sale, this is how big boys do it. I got a hamburger you can help right here. Hamburger helper. Flank steak, the steak that sneaks up on you from the side. Flank steak is, for all intents and purposes, interchangeable with hanger and skirt. These are fibrous, fatty steaks that need to be cooked hot, fast, and to medium rather than medium rare. So you can marinate this, you can grill it, you can slice it thinly on the bias across the fibers, but I think the best use for flank steak is pinwheels. Why pinwheels? Because it is an ingenious use of the form factor. You can see more than any other steak, this has very specific, very directional grain. It's also an opportunity to get some cheese and vegetables and all kinds of fun stuff inside of your steak. To butterfly a flank steak, this is a pretty thin one, so it's going to be a little tricky. What we want to first do is trim it so that it is a more perfect rectangle. This side is a little thicker than this side, so I'm going to start cutting in through this side, work my way this way so that we can open it up. This can be our seam of the beef book that we're about to write. Okay, Daddy did his job, so now we get to eat. I'm laying down some plastic wrap on top of the steak, and I have some thick parts, I got some thin parts. The idea here is I just want to make it even. Now it's time to stuff. So first we need to season the meat with kosher salt, Munster cheese here that I'm just going to shingle on. And now I've just got some peppers and onions that I've briefly sauteed and lightly seasoned. We want to leave a 1-inch gap at the end. Now let's roll it up tight. It's like a big beefy cinnamon roll. Make sure that stuff's good and tucked in there. Roll it up. Now I have some lengths of twine to secure each individual pinwheel. Our flank is all tied up. So now all we need is a super sharp knife. We're going to trim off the ends, get those nice and flat. I think these are just about right in terms of thickness. You don't want to have these too thick and have to cook them for a really long time. And there you have it, folks, some Frankly's Storybook steak pinwheels. Next up, can I sear these without all the stuff falling out of them? Find out after this. Babish Cookware. Checkmate, atheists. And we're back. Can I sear these without the stuff falling out of them? We'll find out now. So normally you want to sear these on a super hot grill to seal the cheese inside so it doesn't all melt out. But I like to get a nonstick skillet nice and hot and drop them straight in there. The cheese is going to hit the nonstick surface and it's going to almost immediately caramelize like a cheese frico, and it's going to seal all that cheese inside. Now that we've got the cheese sealed in on both sides, it's time to put these guys in the oven to finish cooking through. All right, our pinwheels have been cooked to a rosy medium. They've experienced minimal cheese loss. So there you have it, folks, the best way to prepare flank steak. It's like a self-contained Philly cheesesteak without the fussy bread. Perfectly cooked all the way through, cheesy, peppery, the best way to prepare flank steak. Skirt steak. This is an irregularly shaped, fibrous, super fatty cut of beef, which makes it perfect for marination. We want to cook it hot and fast, and we want to tenderize it. So We're gonna put together a marinade that is reminiscent of carne asada. Like most skirt steaks, there is a huge difference in thicknesses throughout. So cutting it down into pieces makes it easier to cook each piece properly. So now onto the marinade. Marinades are really something you can just eyeball. I'm gonna do about a half cup of olive oil, a half cup of soy sauce, the juice of 2 limes, maybe a teaspoon of cumin, about a teaspoon and a half of dried oregano, half teaspoon each garlic and onion powder, paprika, mostly for color, a little sprinkled cayenne pepper, teaspoon and a half of freshly ground black pepper, and 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. Whisk to combine. Now, as you can see for marination, I have folded down the top of my zip top bag. That's going to ensure that we don't get meat around the outside edge, prevent cross-contamination. Pour the marinade over top, close things down, and give it a little massage to make sure that every piece is getting evenly coated in the marinade. Now, if you want to be extra safe, place this in a bowl, put it in the fridge for at least 45 minutes up to 3-ish hours. You don't want to over marinate this because it'll start making it mushy, all that acid. So now it's time to grill our steaks using a 2-zone fire. That means having a really hot side of the grill and a cool side of the grill. On a charcoal grill, that just means piling all the charcoal on one side of the grill. What we're gonna do is we're gonna sear the steak on both sides on the hot side of the grill, and then put it on the cool side of the grill, cover things up, and let them gently come up to temperature. All right, so now it's time to slice and serve, and it's essential with skirt steak that you slice it across the grain into thin slices. This is a very tough, very chewy steak if you don't do that. I wanted to cook this to medium because it is such a fibrous and fat and connective tissue laden steak that I think it's more tender, more juicy at medium than it is at medium rare. So now you can just stop here and just serve this in slices as is, but I want to make a burrito. So I'm going to cut this into bite-sized pieces. We have our grilled tortillas. I'm gonna start with a healthy layer of cheese kind of all over the place. Now I'm gonna load it up with some Mexican rice. Then I have these lovely roasted red peppers and poblanos. And of course, we have our steak. Roll things up. Wabam. So one of the reasons that burritos are so great from restaurants and takeout is because they wrap them. This steams the inside, gets everything melty. More importantly, it steams the tortilla, so it's not rigid or crumbly or anything like that. So I'm gonna wrap this guy up. So now, also, just to really kick things up a notch, I'm gonna put it on the grill. And there it is. My ultimate steak burrito. It's the perfect beef burrito. You could use ground beef, absolutely, but this has so much flavor to it, both from the marinade, but also from flame grilling it. Like this tastes flame grilled. I don't say this word often, I don't use it lightly. That's burrito-tastic. Next up, we have the Delmonico steak. This is often thought of as a less expensive ribeye. It's similarly sort of partitioned into different bits, and it's got a similar fat content, almost a similar appearance. So for all intents and purposes, it can be used interchangeably with ribeye. Now, I think the best use for Delmonico is in a cheesesteak. In Philadelphia, they actually thinly slice real ribeye, which is both expensive and very, very difficult to do. This is less expensive, has similar qualities, and it's going to be easier to slice thinly. First thing we got to do, place these guys on a sheet of parchment paper and put them in the freezer for 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the power of your freezer. The idea here is we want to get it extremely firm so that we can slice it very, very thinly. And it needs to be not frozen through, but maybe the first centimeter or two needs to be damn near frozen. So into the freezer it goes. Now this guy's not fully frozen through, but good and hard, so that we can shave it really thin. One of the keys to a good cheesesteak is very, very thin pieces of beef. This is going to be super tender. It's going to cook very quickly. We're going to be able to get some nice browning on it, and it'll make for a great sandwich. So I want to cook our shaved steak hot and fast. I'm going to use nonstick with just a little bit of fat in it. This is Babish nonstick, which is safe to 550 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's perfect for searing. All right, so once we got some really nice color on the first side, it's time to flip either with a spatula or by going like this. Try to get it sandwich adjacent. Tossing a little splash of water in there just to make things steamy, letting the cheese melt. I'm also gonna Dress this with mayo. That's how some folks do it. Now, all we gotta do is shimmy it right out into our sandwich. And there you have it. The best way to enjoy a Delmonico steak. Hell yeah, dude. This steak is nice and tender, super flavorful, great and fatty. This is definitely a ribeye stand-in, and you could treat it as a ribeye, but few ways finer to enjoy steak than the Philly way. There's a big piece of fat. Let me just get that. Oh no, it's cheese. Chuck steak. Not unlike Converse All-Stars, they're inexpensive and hard to eat. This is one of the least expensive steaks that you can buy, and with good reason. It's not particularly tender. You're gonna have a lot of chewy bits, you're gonna have a lot of sinew and connective tissue you're gonna have to get through. I really wouldn't recommend cooking this as a straight up steak, but we can make one of my very favorite steak analogs, steak hache, which is a French dish. It's basically just a burger without a bun, but you prepare it the same way you would a steak, treat it the same way you would a steak, and eat it the same way you would a burger steak. As steak. So what we're going to do is basically just turn this into ground beef. Now to grind it, I'm going to cut it into 1-inch chunks roughly. Then I'm going to freeze those chunks for about 20 minutes until they're nice and firm around the edges. I want to be on the lookout for any of this stuff. This very thin membrane, silver skin. This does not break down easily. Fat cuts very, very easily. Silver skin, even if you have a wicked sharp knife like this Babish 8-inch chef's knife, it's going to slip across it almost because it's so tough. So now this is headed into the freezer for about 20 minutes until firm around the edges but nice and soft in the middle. So in lieu of a meat grinder, we have a food processor. I put the blade in the freezer for at least 30 minutes to prevent smearing. Grab our semi-frozen beef. Should be firm but not completely frozen. Now we're just going to pulse this guy until we got a nice pebbly ground beef. Absolutely beautiful ground beef. So now we're going to form these into steaks. I'm going to grab about 6 ounces per serving, basically like a medium-sized filet mignon. And I'm going to press it into kind of a football shape. And I'm trying to make it nice and thick because this is going to be pretty easy to overcook. And you really want this to be like medium rare, just like the juiciest, fanciest burger you ever had. It's a fork and knife burger. Just a little bit of salt on one side. And these guys are ready for the grill. I'm also going to brush this guy down with beef fat, both to help prevent him from sticking and to add to all the beefy flavor. So now we're going to plate this guy up super simple with some whole grain mustard, parsley, and freshly ground black pepper. And there you have it, steak hache, one of my very favorite beef preparations. It's simple, it's easy, it's inexpensive, and it's delicious. Oh yeah, this has got to be like the fanciest burger you've ever had, so you got to make it nice and medium rare, at least, if not rare. Oh yeah. Yeah, buddy. It's the only steak you can eat, nothing but a fork. We'll be right back. Babish Cookware. The decision is clear cut. Boneless short ribs, a cut normally relegated to the slow and low camp, but it's super flavorful, really well marbled, and actually takes very well to the grill. And I think the best way to prepare short ribs is in a French dip. Like most steaks grilled medium rare, we are salting and resting this uncovered overnight in the fridge. That's going to help it retain moisture and brown up better. We got our grill set up to a super hot 2-zone fire where we're going to sear it and then move it over to the cool side of the grill until it's a rosy medium rare. All right, so with short rib, there's also a definite grain. If I slice this way, I'll be slicing with the grain. If I slice this way, it'll be against the grain. Now we're gonna shave it really thin, pile it tall and proud, top it with the cheese of your choosing. Still got some Munster here. Now we're just gonna toss this under the broiler until the cheese is melted and bubbly. Mayo on the bread, top it up. Just a little bit of beef stock that has been thickened with a very light roux and flavored with soy sauce and Worcestershire. And there you have it, the best way to enjoy short ribs, a short rib French dip. You got to make sure you cut the short rib very thin and across the grain, otherwise you're going to be pulling out strips. Cutting it this way makes it tender, falling apart, juicy, and the dip, forget about it. If you ask me, if you're not braising it or slow cooking it, this is the very best way to prepare short rib. London broil may be the cheapest steak that you can buy, and it performs as such. It's extremely lean and tough. So the best way to prepare it is to marinate it and cook it medium rare. So the classic London broil marinade usually starts with a bunch of soy sauce, about a half cup's worth. I'm just gonna add a little bit of balsamic, some Worcestershire for that old world solid state machinery flavor, bit of ketchup. This is gonna bring flavor, sugar, and acid, 2 tablespoons worth. Onion powder, about a half teaspoon's worth, half teaspoon of garlic powder, teaspoon of paprika, about a quarter teaspoon of cayenne for some nice heat, and maybe like a half teaspoon of ground sage. There's plenty of salt and soy sauce, so we're not gonna add too much salt, about a half teaspoon's worth, and some coarsely ground black pepper. I'm just gonna throw it in a bag to ensure nice even coverage and massage. Now we're gonna let this sit in the fridge for 8 hours or at room temperature for 2 hours. Our London broil has been marinating for about 4 hours now. Blot off the excess marinade because it will burn. And this big bad boy is headed straight out onto the grill. Okay, our London broil is seared and rested. You'll notice that it's got a very strong grain structure, and especially when you have a steak this lean, you need to cut it against the grain to keep it tender. You can see it's lovely and juicy, and between the marinade and cutting across the grain, it's gonna be quite tender. Perfectly lovely as is, especially if you served it with like a nice gravy, almost like a Yorkshire pudding situation. But I think the best way to enjoy this London broil is to let it cool completely, put it in the fridge, solidify, cut it into super thin sheets, and then you're gonna have the best homemade roast beef cold cuts you've ever had.
Is this where meat hangers come from?
What?
Is that where meat hangers come from?
No, meat hanger, no. Hanger steak. It used to be called a butcher's cut because it was inexpensive and only butchers knew how to cook them. My, how the times have turned. Now they're expensive and very hard to find. So, you. It's one of my favorite cuts. It's usually oblong, so you can cook it to different donenesses for different guests. One of the most flavorful, tender, juiciest cuts, and I think it's absolutely perfect for steak frites. Now you could just pan sear these and finish them in the oven, but I like to do an indirect grilling situation. So we're gonna sear them over hot coals and then move them over to the cool side of the grill to finish cooking. Our hanger steak has rested for 10 minutes. It looks gorgeous. Let's see if it's cooked properly. Perfect. Ugh. Big old pile of French fries. And there you have it, a perfect hanger steak frite. I think the best way to enjoy a hanger steak. One of my very favorite dishes of all time, and unquestionably the best way to prepare a hanger steak. Ribeye. Now there's a steak guy's kind of steak. This is my personal favorite steak. It's laden with fat, it's full of different flavors and textures throughout, and I think the very best way to cook it is to reverse sear it. But not just any reverse sear. We're gonna reverse smoke it. Well, we're gonna reverse smoke sear it. We're gonna smoke it and then we're gonna sear it. These guys have been generously salted and then rested uncovered in the fridge overnight. It's gonna deeply flavor them, tenderize them, and help them brown better. Now the reverse sear is dependent on getting the steak's internal temperature to about 110, 115 degrees Fahrenheit tops. Very difficult to feel and intuit. So if you have a temperature probe, now's the time to bust it out. And there you have it, a reverse smoked ribeye. You can see it is rosy red from all the smoke that it picked up on the Traeger. It's hard to tell that it is cooked to medium. We'll see it once we get to the eye. And there you have it, a reverse smoked ribeye, giving a whole new meaning to cowboy steak. You can see it's crazy tender and it's crazy juicy. It's beef butter. It's buttered beef. Normally I like to finish steaks with butter. You'd be doing it a disservice by drowning it in butter. You would be hard pressed to find a better beef experience than this one. And that is the very best way to make a bone-in ribeye. Well, that was a whole bunch of fun. I hope you enjoyed seeing all my favorite preparations for every cut of steak. But they're just my favorites. What are yours? Bearing in mind that I am correct. You know, I've been here for about 3 hours and no one has there's nobody here. This is going to be empty, right? So thanks again to my long-term partner Squarespace for sponsoring this episode. Be sure to head to rankedwithbabish.com to submit your ideas for what you think I should rank next or who you want to see as a guest. While you're there, admire the smooth template designed by Squarespace. If you feel stuck creating your website, Squarespace can definitely help. In just one click, you can choose from curated color palettes and fonts that can be applied to any template. You can create an entire site in just a few minutes. Their SEO tools help your site reach its audience, and you can use Squarespace to help manage your invoices for commerce or even generate your business name. The tools are all easy to use and at your fingertips. To create a site of your own, head to squarespace.com for a free trial and use code BABISH for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.